Welcome to this next edition for Data for Inclusion Dialogues. Here we talk about breaking down barriers by challenging assumptions and barriers which are in the way of driving financial inclusion. So welcome, Annie. Really a pleasure to talk to you today. So I think
Yeah,
the good thing will be to quickly get started with a short introduction from yourself.
great. Yeah, so my name is Annie Brown. I'm the CEO of Reliable, and we are a data annotation software. And particularly, we're focused on bringing user perspectives or users into the machine learning pipeline in order to not only increase the accuracy of annotations, but then also reduce bias. Right now, a lot of data annotation companies struggle with socially complex data, such as race, gender, religion, things that are very human, and kind of filling that gap to help to bring more diversity to the data annotator pool.
Okay, so that's very interesting. So the idea is that, when it comes to data, when it comes to technology, a lot has been going on. There is a lot of talk around AI helping drive productivity, AI helping drive profitability, but then there are also societal issues. But do you think that
Yep.
given the developments that are happening, can AI truly be a force for good? And by good, I mean that it can help drive financial inclusion, especially for many, many millions who are today excluded.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's a question I struggle with often. I think, it's really going to be up to the people who are creating these technologies at the end of the day. And hopefully, governments, I'm all for government regulation when it comes to AI. So I hope that that plays a part in this too. For me, like I said, I've been thinking about this a lot. And I do think that AI could be used as a force for good. I mean, for us, what we're trying to do is by bringing diverse perspectives into AI, almost making AI like a collective intelligence that might be able to solve problems that would be too complex for one person or even a group of people to solve. And so when you're talking about really complex problems like homelessness or poverty or environmental sustainability, it's what we're often lacking when we make those decisions is intelligence from marginalized communities.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so if we bring those marginalized communities, their voices, their perspectives into AI, plus also, of course, talking, like you talk to them, our process basically is we talk to marginalized communities who are going to be impacted or going to be using these AI products and then bring in their language, how they talk about the problem into the taxonomy, and then also bring them in as annotators. And so I guess that's a way you can kind of bring marginalized voices into a problem at scale. Yeah, so I think it can be used for good to solve complex problems, but I don't think we're there yet. I think we're hitting a wall right now where people are trying to bring in diverse data sets and hoping that that solves a problem. But what my research found and what Reliable is really focused on is that diverse data sets are not enough. So basically, like, you have to also have diverse data sets that are annotated without bias, because you can have an unbiased data set, but then all the labels on it just replicate how we, view marginalized groups or view problems from a top-down lens.
So that's a very interesting point. So essentially, the idea is that, okay, just doing something at a higher level may not
Yeah.
be enough. So just access to data is not enough. You have to really go 2 or 3 levels deep. So
Yep.
now that's what we are trying, and you're trying to bring in the actual user perspective. But the key
Mm-hmm.
thing then is that many a times the technology solutions that are there, they're trying to go with a very narrow objective function. Okay, the narrow
Mm-hmm.
objective function could be, I want to maximize my profit. I want to reduce the risk. But then here, what you're talking about is that you're looking at multiple objective functions that, yes, I want to make this system very efficient in whatever the outcome it's predicting, but
Mm-hmm.
you're also taking into account the design of the system to be way more robust. So tell me a little bit more about, like, what was the spark behind that?
Yeah, so back in 2019, I launched a social media platform for the LGBTQ community,
Okay.
and we scaled it to over 50,000 users. And in that process, we needed help, automated help with moderation, and content recommendation. And when I started looking into it, a big reason we created this platform was actually because of bias that LGBTQ communities were facing on social media platforms when it came to unfair moderation. And so I was trying not to recreate that on this platform because that was the whole reason that people joined the platform. But then when I used off the shelf models, it's all the same. So basically, and I looked into it, and these models I was looking at said, oh, we trained on these diverse data sets, blah, blah, but like, why is it hitting that wall of still, even when I tell it that this is for an LGBTQ social media platform, it's still unfairly removing trans people. It's still unfairly, when it sees the word gay or bisexual, it's labeling that as inappropriate content. So when I dug deeper into that, I found that it's actually in the metadata layer where a lot
Right.
of this bias is going unchecked. And also that a lot of annotation companies don't even take into account marginalized communities. So for example, like a lot of data annotation, when they're given the data annotator or it's an AI, it's like they can label it male or female, and
Right.
there's nothing along their spectrum, which when,
Right.
a huge percentage of Gen Z identifies somewhere along that spectrum, that's a problem. So yeah, so that's kind of how I stumbled onto the problem, and we started using it for our platform. And then I started speaking about it, sharing my experience, trying to help other companies. And then other companies would come up to me and say, hey, could you build something similar for us? Or could you do this for us? Because we're struggling with those kind of edge cases, socially complex data as well. So that's when Reliable kind of spun out and turned into what it is today.
Yeah, so I think that's very interesting. So I think, do you think that it's truly only edge case, or is there a much bigger scale to it?
Mm, yeah, I mean, I think, when you think of socially complex data or you think of edge case, you think, oh, that's probably a small
Yeah.
portion, but actually it's huge because right
Right.
now, like these data annotation platforms are trying to label people's faces, or take, for example, like wearable devices
Right.
aren't as good at detecting biometrics on melanated skin as they are on more pale skin. And so, there's just so many things that are like, if you think about the world population that fits into the marginalized
Right.
category is the majority of people on the planet. And
Right.
so if AI is to serve any portion of people that go beyond the white cis male bubble,
Yeah.
then it's going to have to address the bias at the annotation level.
So I think that's a really good point. And that's where I was trying to get to, is that this
Mhm.
is not edge case. This is actually a big, massive problem. And then the
Yeah,
thing is that there is a solution which is available, as you talked about. It's all about how do you really think in that direction? And
yeah.
but do you think there is enough going on? What do you suggest as a path forward?
Mm. Yeah, well, I think that, what's really cool about our solution is that yes, we reduce bias, but we at Reliable actually equate bias with accuracy. We see them as the same thing.
Okay.
So all AI is about, every AI company, every AI model, the top goal is accuracy. Like, is this doing what I want it to do accurately? And because of that, we've been able to start talking with large enterprise companies that maybe otherwise wouldn't care about
Mm.
reducing bias or AI ethics or things like that, but they do care about the accuracy of their models. So I think that's what I get very excited about, is when people start to realize that AI ethics and AI efficiency are actually the same thing, that you're making better, when you make better AI, or you make AI that's more ethical or more inclusive, you're actually just making a better technology. And so when companies start to realize that, then these methodologies start to get adopted. So yeah, I'm actually weirdly optimistic about the future of AI, because I think there are a lot of people out there doing good work. And I think what's cool about technology is at the end of the day, it's all about how well the technology works, especially AI. It's very kind of black and white. It's like it works or it doesn't work.
Mm.
And so, since AI is so motivated by that accuracy, then inclusion is just going to have to come along in order to push it from 80% accuracy to 95% accuracy.
Yeah, I think that's a really good comment. So accuracy equals performance, which is same as saying that you're making it inclusive, you're
Mm-hmm.
making it better. And then the more people it can serve, it obviously can provide better product outcomes and better, higher profits. So I think it's
Yeah.
all kind of aligned to each other. But the whole idea is it's all about whether you're thinking in that direction. And I'm glad that you're saying that there are many different enterprises who are coming to you and they want that
Yeah.
change, whether it's for accuracy or for inclusion. Ultimately, the end goal takes us to the same place. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I think this is really, really good. Any parting thoughts? This was a really interesting, conversation, and I loved some of the perspectives you shared. But any parting thoughts?
I think just that, well, parting thought when it comes to how we view AI, because all the time I hear this talk about AI like stealing jobs and things like that. And the thing that is so interesting to me is that there are thousands upon thousands upon thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of workers right now that are literally powering AI. And
Right.
so it's the data annotators, and I think they're this overlooked working group, and I actually really recommend looking into one of our nonprofit partners. They're called Tech Worker Community Africa,
Okay.
and they're one of the world's first unionized data annotation workers, and they stood up against huge corporations to demand better working conditions. And I just think, when we're talking about financial inclusion, I do think there is this opportunity for AI to provide a lot of jobs. But, right now AI is relying a lot on exploited labor
Right.
when really, that's work that's fueling the technology we're using every day. So it needs
Right.
to be valued at the level that it deserves to be valued. So yeah, I think just my parting thoughts are just like, remember the data annotation workers that are making everything possible, and that as we move forward to make sure we include them in discussions of the future of AI, especially when it comes to financial inclusion.
So I think that's a really important point. And is it, I think the one problem is that obviously just the sole focus on profits making, that could be one issue.
Mhm.
The other thing is thinking about all the stakeholders. And then the key
Yeah.
part within that is that do you need a skills transfer? There's a lot of worry around jobs because many people think that the jobs which AI will take, they are not replaceable, or these people, what will they do? So, do you think it's tied to also around how do you transfer skills so that and educating people about that there is a lot more opening up? Like, as you said, from the annotation perspective, there are
Yeah.
so many other fields, there are so many other parts to this journey for all different industries where this modernization is happening through AI. There are many more different kinds of work that is emerging.
Yeah, exactly. And I think even easier than skills transfer, it's like, if AI is being trained on data that I'm uploading to the internet, why aren't I getting
Right.
some back from
Benefits.
that? So
Yeah.
if AI is making all this money,
Yeah.
why not have AI start paying for the stuff I'm doing in my everyday life? I mean, I personally believe in universal basic income. So I think that like AI is something that could help us reach that point where it's like, I mean, the whole point of AI is that we have to work less, right? So that we can focus on really human things like art and music and poetry. And so I think, like, for me, it's not necessarily that bad if AI takes jobs that people don't want to do. I think it's more that we make sure that people are compensated for the work that they're contributing to AI, the data that we're putting in that right now we're not getting
Anything.
paid to do that. I mean, AI is relying a lot on stolen data, exploited labor,
Right.
and it just can't keep going like that.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of talk around universal basic income. How it'll
Mhm.
look like in many different countries, we'll have to see. But I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying, where you're coming from, that yes, there is a lot of things that have been taken for granted, but there is no
Yeah.
real payback. So what's that real payback? And obviously everybody has to come together, like citizens, government, other organizations will have to kind of rally together, because this is a massive, like, this is something that concerns all of us. So yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of the things Reliable is kind of starting to think about is because we're bringing users into the machine learning pipeline, when we bring those users in, we pay those users for their time annotating. And so I think there's a lot of AI at the infrastructure level can, not without that much effort, start paying users for what they're contributing to the machine learning pipeline.
Okay, that's interesting. So there are pathways to make it easy and doable, which is all
Exactly.
what is needed. Yeah.
Yep. Easy, inclusive. It's all possible. We just have to start thinking that way.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It's all possible. We have to think in that direction. And I think that's
Mhm.
the idea behind this Data for Inclusion project as well. So really had
Cool.
a good time talking to you, and I wish you the best.